The Death Star was the Galactic Empire's most fearsome instrument of terror, an enormous mobile battle station capable of annihilating entire planets with a single shot. Two versions were built, with the first Death Star measuring 120 kilometers in diameter, while the second expanded that to 160 kilometers. A big part of its internal volume was dedicated to support systems such as the super laser and the massive hypermatter reactor that powered it. These reactors burned with the intensity of several main sequence stars, fueled by stellar plasma which was contained in energy bottles along the reactor's perimeter. The Death Star was divided into two massive equatorial trenches, separating it into a northern and southern hemisphere. This area housed the main hangars, propulsion systems, tractor beam arrays, and sensor suites. In addition, supplementary trenches located midway between the poles and equator contained secondary systems. Internally, the Death Stars were segmented into 24 zones, with 12 per hemisphere, with each managed by a dedicated command bridge. These zones were further organized into specialized sectors like command, military, or technical. To move, the Death Stars relied on a sophisticated propulsion network of ion engines that converted the hypermatter reactor's output into thrust. For hyperspace travel, the stations used a complex web of 123 hyperdrive field generators synchronized through a central navigation matrix. Due to its immense size, it even simulated the gravitational pull of a planet. Although it was a military station, the Death Star still needed to accommodate its massive personnel. To achieve that, the station included civilian-friendly features like parks, shops, recreation centers, and social venues such as the Hard Heart Cantina, where crew members would go and talk about their latest day guarding the trash compactor over a nice cocktail. The super laser, the station's central weapon, was powered directly by the hypermatter reactor. Its design focused the energy of 8 beams into a single massive beam using an amplification kyber crystal. When fired at full power, the blast could destroy a planet in seconds. However, after each shot at full power, the reactor needed at least 24 standard hours to recharge. The super laser's power could also be adjusted to target smaller vessels or only destroy a planet's surface, as seen during the Battle of Endor in Rogue One. This would be achieved by only using a portion of the reactor's power, as Tarkin says in Rogue One.
Target the base at Scarif. Single reactor ignition.
Yes, sir.
Aside from the main weapon, it also included approximately 15,000 ion and turbo laser batteries, as well as 768 tractor beam projectors. The concept of the Death Star originated with Wraith Saynar from the Saynar flight systems as an expeditionary battle planetoid, but considered it impractical. The concept did make its way to the, at the time, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, however, who saw potential in the design. He went on to put the necessary steps in place to start development on it. He first assigned the project to the engineer Bevel Lemelisk, who was able to reach a breakthrough in hypermatter energy science in collaboration with the Geonosians under Archduke Poggle the Lesser. The design was then given to the Separatists, who, under Dooku's orders, kept refining the concept of the station. The weapon's construction then slowly began in the Geonosis system. A main issue during the development remained the station's super laser, as they didn't know which power source could be used for it. A lot of experimentation was made with kyber crystals, the same crystals used to power the lightsaber. After the formation of the Empire, Palpatine ordered full-scale construction of the Death Star. An aspiring Imperial officer called Krennic was chosen to lead development. Wookiees from Kashyyyk and other alien species were enslaved for labor alongside prisoners from various Imperial detention centers, which put together the parts necessary for the Death Star. Despite these efforts, construction was plagued by difficulties due to its enormous size that hadn't been seen at this scale before. Building the super laser was among the project's greatest challenges. The 8 tributary beams required exact calibration. Misalignment risked beam instability, potentially backfiring and damaging the station. Firing the laser demanded so much power that most other systems, including shields and life support, had to be temporarily disabled. The process also produced magnetic and gravitational disturbances that required dissipation or else risked destroying the station from within. To address these issues, Tarkin assembled a team of top scientists who developed a functional prototype and resolved critical design flaws inherited from the Geonosian drafts. Galen Erso, a scientist from Krennic's team, also gave the key insight on how to harness the kyber crystal's power, unaware that it'll be used for the superweapon. During its construction, it also had to be relocated repeatedly, moving from Geonosis to Siswena, then Patrine, and finally Horus. Full-scale construction was eventually completed on the prison world Despair. With the first Death Star complete, the Empire explored two possible futures: mass-producing the design or building an even larger successor. They chose the latter, setting the stage for the second Death Star. The Death Star was said to be indestructible, as its enormous size meant that even damages to some sectors wouldn't be able to destroy the station. However, Galen Erso, the scientist on Krennic's team, built in a critical design flaw where one of the thermal exhaust ports led directly to the reactor, which was overlooked by the other engineers on the Death Star. This weakness was used by the Rebel Alliance to destroy the station during the Battle of Yavin. The incomplete second Death Star was destroyed during the Battle of Endor, ending the reign of the Death Star and the Galactic Empire. Years later, during the invasion of the galaxy by the Yuuzhan Vong, Han Solo would quip, "Why isn't there a Death Star lying around when you need one?" Indeed, a Death Star would be great to have against an intergalactic alien species. Maybe the Empire was onto something after all. In the LEGO world, the second Death Star UCS set is one of the most sought-after and beautiful models ever created, and anyone who has it should be very proud of it. In general, the Death Star is a world phenomenon, with every person on the planet, even though they have no connection to Star Wars, being aware of its function and existence. In a petition in 2012, some people even got a request through to the US government to start construction of the Death Star. The government responded by saying that sadly it would take 833,000 years to gather enough steel to even begin construction. So a real-life Death Star is not a reality, right now. The Star Forge was a massive automated shipyard built by the Rakatan Infinite Empire around 30,000 BBY. Unlike superweapons which seek to destroy things, the Star Forge was designed to forge the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. To achieve that, the station drew raw material and energy directly from a nearby star in the Leihan system, combining that power with the dark side of the Force to produce a limitless supply of starships, droids, and weapons of war at an unnatural pace. It was constructed through the labor of slaves from conquered worlds of the Rakata and was an unparalleled technological achievement. Yet it came at a profound cost. The Rakata were a cruel and violent species steeped in the dark side of the Force. This darkness seeped into the Star Forge, which gradually became a semi-sentient construct, feeding off the negative traits of its creators. Over time, the Star Forge began to exert influence over the Rakata themselves, corrupting them further to fuel its insatiable hunger for power. This self-perpetuating cycle of darkness contributed directly to the collapse of the Rakatan Empire. Though technologically brilliant, the station had become a dark side artifact, dangerous even to those who commanded it. After the fall of the Rakatan Empire, the Star Forge was lost and its existence unknown to the wider galaxy. It wasn't until Darth Revan and Darth Malak, on a quest to rebuild the Sith Empire, discovered its location through the star maps scattered across the galaxy. The Star Forge's structure was unlike anything else ever seen in the galaxy. It consisted of a central spherical core with 3 massive fins attached. These fins reached toward Abo, the system's star, and channeled solar matter into the station to fuel its endless manufacturing processes. These fins also housed the docking facilities for starfighters and small freighters, with the bays located along the fin structure. Despite its immense size and value, the Star Forge was very lightly armed, as only a handful of turbo-laser batteries protected the hangar zones. As mentioned already, the Star Forge relied on its ability to mass-produce ships and droids as its main purpose. For defense, an outside fleet was required. Internally, it was fortified by heavy blast doors and a constant flow of battle droids. Additionally, the Temple of the Ancients on Leihan projected a powerful energy field that disabled incoming ships, pulling them into the planet's gravity well and crashing them onto the surface. Like other Rakatan artifacts, the Star Forge featured self-repair capabilities that allowed it to survive for tens of thousands of years without a crew. Its influence extended to devices like the star maps, semi-sentient navigational maps scattered across the galaxy. Though the Rakata had attempted to destroy the star maps during their empire's collapse, the Star Forge slowly rebuilt them itself. The Star Forge's main appearance was in the first Knights of the Old Republic game. There, Darth Revan and Darth Malak used it to construct a Sith armada with the goal of overthrowing the Republic. However, Revan was defeated due to Malak's betrayal, and his memory was wiped by the Jedi. Revan then had to slowly rediscover the location of the Star Forge by searching for the star maps yet again. Darth Malak at that point had it running at full capacity, with the station churning out vast numbers of ships to bolster Malak's Sith fleet, pushing the galaxy further into a war. Revan eventually found the Starforge's location and returned alongside the Republic fleet to confront Malak aboard it. In the ensuing battle, Malak revealed that the Starforge was also able to link near-dead Jedi bodies to itself, allowing it to transfer their Force energy directly into him. These Jedi, trapped in a limbo between life and death, could not become one with the Force. Malak used their energy to heal himself and prolong his life during his duel with Revan. However, despite having the Starforge's full capability at his disposal, Malak was eventually beaten in his duel with Revan, and the Republic fleet, with the guidance of Bastila Shan's battle meditation, destroyed the Starforge and the Sith fleet protecting it. With the Starforge destroyed and Malak dead, the Jedi Civil War ended. The Republic chose to suppress knowledge of the station and its creators. As a result, the Lehan system was quarantined, and what remained of the Starforge was left to drift in obscurity. For most of the galaxy, the Starforge became little more than legend, its story buried, its ruins off-limits, and its dark legacy deliberately forgotten. Centerpoint Station was one of the oldest and most powerful technological artifacts in the galaxy. It was built around 100,000 BBY by the Thurut-Killik Hive under the Order of the Celestials, the Celestials being the daughter, the son, and the father. Measuring 100 kilometers wide and 350 kilometers long, the station was even larger than the first Death Star. From afar, it looked like a massive semi-transparent sphere with two small cylindrical extensions. At its core was a 60-kilometer wide hollow chamber housing the station's tractor beam projector and power source, a floating orb of energy called the Glow Point. Now, what was the Superweapons' main feature? Centerpoint Station had an incredibly advanced network of high-energy systems capable of generating an immensely strong tractor beam through hyperspace. This beam could lock onto targets which were as large as planets or even black holes, and move them across space to reposition them. With enough energy, it could even collapse entire planets by destabilizing their cores by generating a massive gravitational shift. The Celestials used Centerpoint Station to shape entire star systems, including the Corellian system. They also created a black hole cluster called the Maw to imprison their mother, the Celestial known as Abeloth. When the Celestials withdrew themselves from the known galaxy, the station was left at a Lagrangian point between the twin worlds of Talos and Tralis in the Corellian system. After the fall of the Rakatan Infinite Empire around 25,200 BBY, slaves in the Corellian system revolted and began settling on the station, but were unaware of its origins as a superweapon. The central chamber housing the Glow Point became known as Hollow Town, a habitable zone where crops could grow. Over time, the station became all but a mystery, its purpose and capabilities long forgotten. For thousands of years, the station lay dormant. It wasn't until 18 ABY, when scientists from the planet Socoria were able to unlock the station's tractor beam function. They activated it, causing the destruction of a nearby star. The activation of the beam also led to the destruction of Hollow Town as the Glow Point reached an insanely high temperature, all but incinerating every inhabitant. The station was then abandoned once again. However, its power and capabilities have been rediscovered and were a known quantity in the galaxy. Sometime later, during the Triad's uprising, the station was used to destroy 2 stars before Anakin Solo was able to stop it. During the Vujon Vong War, it was used once again to destroy an entire Yuuzhan Vong fleet. However, as the weapon was rather difficult to operate, they accidentally also destroyed an entire Allied fleet with it. The station was then used by several different actors in the galaxy with varying degrees of success. Realizing the threat Centerpoint posed to galactic balance, Grandmaster Luke Skywalker and the new Jedi Order decided to launch a mission to destroy it. Jedi Master Kip Duran led the attack, managing to reprogram the station to fire on itself. But before they could attempt to trigger the weapon, a technician attempted to fire it at Coruscant as he wanted to avenge his lost wife, unaware that the station had been reprogrammed. The resulting gravitic pulse annihilated Centerpoint Station, killing everyone on board and vaporing all ships within its blast radius. Unbeknownst to Luke, though, the destruction of the station led to the destabilization of the Maw Cluster, which contained Abeloth, bringing back the power of chaos that the Celestials had once imprisoned. World Devastators were massive superweapons deployed by the Dark Empire under the reborn Emperor Palpatine. These colossal machines were equipped with powerful tractor beams capable of tearing apart planetary surfaces and harvesting their materials for war production. A World Devastator's core tactic was simple: descend onto a planet's surface and activate powerful tractor beam projectors that would rip the ground apart. The raw material was then fed into onboard molecular furnaces, which powered the Devastator and supplied its massive foundries. These internal factories could rapidly produce starfighters, droids, speeders, and even cruisers, deploying them straight into battle from the assembly line. This basically made them a combination of the Starforge and Centerpoint Station. At the heart of each Devastator was a central droid brain, which managed production and was programmed with a vast database of ship designs. Organic crew handled navigation and weapons, but the true brain of the operation was the machine itself. Each unit could also allocate resources towards self-upgrades, making no two World Devastators identical. With enough time and material, they were even capable of building more of their own kind. The machines were nearly invulnerable. Their shields were strong enough to resist concentrated turbo laser fire, and enemy ships that came too close were often pulled in and consumed. However, some of the smaller Devastators had external shield generators vulnerable to starfighter assault. Damaging 2 of their 4 legs could also cause them to collapse. Their most infamous use came during the Battle of Mon Calamari. After the Empire recaptured Coruscant, the reborn Emperor Palpatine set his sights on the ocean world of Dak, the temporary New Republic capital. The Devastators led the assault, tearing apart floating cities and shipyards. Despite the New Republic trying to fight back, the Devastators proved nearly unstoppable. The turning point came when Luke Skywalker, who was believed to have turned to become Palpatine's apprentice, was able to infiltrate the Empire's chain of command and used his authority to shut down the Devastators. Skywalker then smuggled vital data to the rebels through R2-D2, who helped develop a code that corrupted the Devastators' droid brains. The virus caused the machines to turn on each other, effectively ending the battle. The New Republic salvaged at least 1 Devastator. However, after public backlash, all captured units were dismantled. The Galaxy Gun was a massive superweapon built by the Galactic Empire in 10 ABY, also under the command of the resurrected Emperor Palpatine. Shaped like a giant cannon, the 7,250-meter-long space station was stationed in orbit above Biss. It was equipped with sublight engines and a slow Class 6 hyperdrive. Its sole function was to launch advanced missiles armed with particle disintegrator warheads, also known as lightspeed torpedoes. These missiles could enter hyperspace, jump across the galaxy, and hit targets within hours. Upon emerging from hyperspace, the missile would lock onto its target and even had built-in defenses which activated mid-flight, including laser cannons and deflector shields to protect against intercepting ships or weapons. On impact, the warhead triggered a chain of nucleonic reactions that converted matter to energy, vaporizing anything in its path. This meant it could lay waste to entire planets, completely destroying its surface. The weapon could also be dialed down for smaller strikes like taking out a city. Palpatine kept the Galaxy Gun hidden in Biss's orbit, guarded by a massive fleet. In retaliation for Luke's escape and the assault on his citadel in Biss, Palpatine ordered the first shot. The missile obliterated the New Republic base on Pinnacle Moon within hours. The Galaxy Gun soon laid waste to multiple targets. Even high-powered defenses like Kuat's V-200 ion cannons couldn't stop its missiles. In 11 ABY, during the Battle of Onderon, the Galaxy Gun met its end. R2-D2 managed to hijack the Superstar Destroyer Eclipse II and crashed it into the Galaxy Gun. The Galaxy Gun was too large and too slow to avoid impact, resulting in the weapon's destruction. However, one final missile had launched just before the destruction, but it was caught by Biss's gravitational field and detonated on the planet, annihilating the Emperor's remaining forces and ending Operation Shadowhand. The Malachor Sith Temple was an ancient temple hidden beneath a stone-crusted cavern on Malachor. It was built thousands of years before the Battle of Yavin and was built by a Sith Lord called Darth Nihilus. At its heart was a massive kyber crystal that powered the weapon. When the Jedi discovered the Sith's plan, they launched an assault on Malachor. During the battle, the weapon was fired, instantly killing and turning everyone on the battlefield to stone, both Jedi and Sith. The catastrophic event became known as the Great Scourge of Malachor. After that catastrophe, the temple was forgotten. Thousands of years later, Darth Maul and Ezra Bridger rediscovered the weapon. Together, they managed to get the Sith holocron that was needed to activate the weapon by placing it into an obelisk at the temple's peak. However, before it could fire, the holocron was removed prematurely, leading to a chain reaction that led to an explosion. During the ensuing duel between Vader and Ahsoka, the temple started crumbling and was left in ruins at the end, rendering it unusable. The Mass Shadow Generator was a superweapon from the Mandalorian Wars and the Old Republic era. It was designed to tap into the natural gravitational forces of planetary bodies, known as mass shadows, and exploit these intense gravitational anomalies to unleash massive destruction on anything near the planet. It was designed specifically for Malachor V, though theories suggested it could be adapted for use in any star system. The weapon was powerful enough to tear apart ships and space stations in orbit and obliterate nearly everything on a planet's surface. It was developed under the orders of Jedi Knight Revan in 3960 BBY as the key piece of a trap meant to end the Mandalorian Wars. Jedi General Meetra Surik oversaw the device's deployment. Revan lured the Mandalorians to Malachor V, sparking a massive battle in orbit of the planet. At the height of the conflict, Surik gave the command to activate the weapon. The result was catastrophic. A colossal gravity vortex tore through both fleets, dragging countless ships down and smashing them into the planet. The blast fractured Malachor V to its core, turning it into a shattered mass of planetoids held together only by unstable gravitational fields. The surface became a graveyard of ships and dead warriors, Republic and Mandalorian alike. It was the single biggest catastrophe of the era, and the death and destruction of Malachor V left a deep wound in the Force that the pain it caused Meetra Surik nearly killed her. To survive, she instinctively and unknowingly severed her own connection to the Force and went into exile. The event also marked yet another step in Revan's path down the dark side and also gave birth to Darth Nihilus. Later, during the Dark Wars, Darth Traya and Sith Triumvirate set up the Treyas Academy on Malachor V, training their dark side students there. Surik eventually returned to Malachor from exile and defeated the Sith Triumvirate in a final battle in the Treyas Academy. She then had the Mass Shadow Generator reactivated yet again remotely, destroying the tainted planet and the Mass Shadow Generator once and for all. Centuries later, around 3625 BBY during the Third Galactic War, the weapon was rebuilt by a French Sith cult called the Unmasked. Before the weapon could be used again, though, a strike team led by the commander of the Eternal Alliance intervened and destroyed it once more, ending the threat for good. Darth Nihilus jump scare. Yep, not the super weapon you expected now, is it? Unlike the Death Star, Centerpoint Station, and other technological marvels, Nihilus was a superweapon in the Force. During the Battle of Malachor, Nihilus was stationed on the surface, battling against the Mandalorian forces. When the aforementioned Mass Shadow Generator was activated, Malachor's surface as well as almost everyone present on the planet were destroyed and killed. Nihilus was one of the only survivors. However, the destruction of Malachor V left deep scars, not just on his body, but on his very essence. The massive loss of life tore a wound in the Force, and Nihilus became something unnatural, a being defined by hunger, an insatiable void that could only be sated by feeding on the Force energy of others. His condition ravaged his body and spirit, but he was discovered by Darth Traya, who had set up her academy on Malachor V. She offered to teach him how to feed his hunger. Accepting her guidance, he trained at the Treyas Academy on Malachor V, where he grew in power and eventually became one of the 3 Dark Lords of the Sith in the Sith Triumvirate, as the Lord of Hunger. Alongside Darth Sion, Nihilus purged almost every single Jedi in the galaxy, wiping out the entire Order in a single apocalyptic event on Qatar. Darth Nihilus didn't need fleets or armies to destroy Qatar, though. He simply fed. Drawing on his overwhelming connection to the dark side, he unleashed a massive force drain that consumed the life energy of every being on the planet in a single moment. It wasn't just the Jedi gathered there. He wiped out the entire population, erased the ecosystem, and left the world a dead, barren shell, turning an entire planet into a void. However, despite having consumed an entire planet, his hunger was insatiable. Next, he turned his attention to Telos 4, launching an attack in hopes of feeding on the Jedi in the Academy there. Before he could land on the planet, though, his ship was intercepted by Meetra Surik, who, just like him, was also a wound in the Force, but on the light side of the Force. This made Surik the perfect counter against his Force Drain ability, as Nihilus's most powerful ability was rendered useless, and after a duel on the bridge, Surik was able to kill the Dark Lord, ending the life of a single most terrifying Sith of the era. Nihilus's spirit remained bound to his armor, which was later taken to Korriban for burial. There, his essence could still be reached through a holocron he had created. Stariller Base was a superweapon built by the First Order on the ice planet Elam, deep in the unknown regions. It was once a Jedi world where they would venture to get their lightsaber crystals, but was later strip-mined by the Empire for its kyber crystals. This led to the planet to destabilize, opening the massive crater in the center of the planet. After the fall of the Empire, Elam was transformed by the First Order into a military headquarters as well as a mobile planet-killing weapon, capable of destroying entire star systems. The superweapon drew power from stars, consuming them entirely and harnessing their energy into the planet's core. Stariller Base used a combination of natural magnetic fields and an artificial thermal oscillator to contain the immense energy that it absorbed. A hollow firing cylinder embedded in the massive trench eventually channeled the weapon's energy into a beam. To fire it released the stored dark energy as phantom energy. This beam punched through hyperspace, traveling instantly along a straight path and could lock onto multiple targets with a single shot. The firing of the weapon was also visible across the galaxy. Upon impact, the beam destabilized the planet's core, triggering a chain reaction that destroyed the target world. Beyond its weapon, Stariller Base functioned as a full-scale military installation. It included shipyards, hangars, command centers, stormtrooper garrisons, and support facilities. Snowtroopers patrolled the frozen terrain in utility vehicles, while maintenance was handled by droids and a variety of support personnel. The base's interior also stretched deep underground, housing communication rooms and other infrastructure. The base was shielded by a powerful planetary defense system that was impenetrable to sublight-speed ships. However, it had vulnerabilities. The shield required a brief refresh cycle, allowing a small ship to slip through if it exited hyperspace at the perfect moment. The Resistance exploited this weakness when the Millennium Falcon breached the shield and crash-landed on the surface. The base was eventually destroyed by Poe Dameron in a Death Star-esque trench run, where they managed to destroy the base's thermal oscillator. The release of the stored energy caused the planet to implode, marking the end of the First Order's most powerful weapon. The Zeiston-class Star Destroyer was the Star Destroyer variant seen in The Rise of Skywalker. It resembled the Imperial Star Destroyer, with the only difference being the red markings around the hull and a big axial super laser on the bottom of it. This super laser is the reasoning it is classified as a superweapon as well, as it was able to destroy planets with just a single shot. It was built using Death Star technology and was powered by kyber crystals. Because the weapon pulled raw power directly from the reactor, it placed extreme demands on the ship's systems. This meant that should the super laser be damaged sufficiently, which was directly tied to the reactor, the entire Star Destroyer could be destroyed. The main weakness of them was that despite having their own navigation systems and hyperdrive, the Zeiston class relied on an external navigation beacon for coordination and jump calculations. This was most likely only in Exegol's chaotic atmosphere, though, where the local environment's static discharges also prevented the activation of hyperdrives and shields while in-system. During the final battle on Exegol, the Zeiston-class fleet was destroyed alongside the rest of the Sith Eternal fleet because of the aforementioned vulnerability of their reactors and being reliant on a central control signal. Funnily enough, a Star Destroyer fleet equipped with a Death Star laser each is probably the strongest type of superweapon ever, as it can easily be mass-produced. However, I don't like giving credit to the sequels, so it's time to move on. The Suncrusher was built in secret at the Maw installation, an Imperial research facility hidden within a cluster of black holes. The research facility was overseen by Grand Moff Tarkin for experimental weapons, but was completely forgotten after his death, as even Palpatine was unaware of its existence. The scientists on the base kept at it, though, and thus the Suncrusher was born. What made it special was that it was small enough to be mistaken for a starfighter, but carried destructive power beyond even the Death Star. Unlike the Death Star, which destroyed individual planets, the Suncrusher targeted entire star systems. Its primary weapon was a payload of 11 energy resonance torpedoes, which, once launched, traveled at near light speed into a system. On impact, the torpedo burrowed into the star's core and triggered a chain reaction, causing the stars to go supernova and obliterating the planet. The ship itself was nearly indestructible, being protected by quantum crystalline armor, which was an ultra-dense material impervious to turbo lasers. It could even plow through a Star Destroyer's bridge undamaged and even survived a blow from a Death Star prototype super laser. In 11 ABY, Han Solo, Chewbacca, and Jedi trainee Kip Duran discovered the Suncrusher on the research facility. They managed to steal the weapon and fled with it. The Suncrusher was then hidden deep in the gas giant Yavin. thought to be unreachable due to the extreme atmospheric pressure. But Kip Duran was later influenced by the Sith spirit Exar Kun and went on to retrieve the weapon. He used it to destroy the Cauldron Nebula and later the Karita system, killing billions. His actions shocked the galaxy and pushed the New Republic into a crisis. Eventually, Han Solo and Lando Calrissian tracked Kip down. After a confrontation and the destruction of Exar Kun's spirit on Yavin, Kip realized the horror of what he had done. In an effort to make amends, he agreed to destroy the Suncrusher. During the battle over the Maw Cluster, Kip went on to pilot the Suncrusher into one of the black holes, destroying the ship, and with it the most destructive weapon ever seen. The Dark Reaper was a Sith superweapon created during the Great Hyperspace War around 5000 BBY. It was destined to harness and weaponize the Force itself by using a component called the Force Harvester, a device that drains the Force energy from all living things within range and killing everything nearby. That harvested energy was then channeled into powerful energy beams capable of destroying anything in their path. Additionally, the Dark Reaper was outfitted with turbo lasers to defend itself from other vehicles and such. Its most prominent appearance was in the Great Sith War, where the fallen Jedi Exar Kun rediscovered the Dark Reaper during an excavation on Yavin 4 and used it in the ongoing conflict against the Republic. It was ultimately destroyed when Ulic Qel-Droma, a former close ally of Exar Kun, revealed that it couldn't drain a wound in the Force. The Jedi Strike Team used this information and was able to destroy the Reaper. It was dismantled and its components were scattered across the galaxy. During the Clone Wars, Count Dooku rediscovered the Force Harvester and activated it. Anakin Skywalker got wind of it and single-handedly disabled it yet again, destroying the superweapon once and for all. The Darksaber, and no, it's not the lightsaber, was actually a superweapon conceived by the Hutt crime lord Durga. It was designed by the same engineer behind the original Death Star and was made because Durga wanted to start an ambitious campaign to conquer the galaxy. Durga's vision for the Darksaber was simple. He wanted a cheaper alternative to the Death Star that retained its most important feature, its planet-destroying firepower. Everything deemed unnecessary was removed. The result was a kilometers-long tube of Durasteel centered entirely around a redesigned superlaser, capable of greater energy output and faster recharge rates than the original Death Star laser. However, the execution was sloppy as the builders Durga hired lacked the experience and misassembled it in several sections. This led the Darksaber to constantly malfunction, venting steam, sparking wires, and triggering false alarms due to the poor craftsmanship. The New Republic eventually learned of Durga's new weapon and sent a strike team to eliminate it. However, after a sabotage attempt failed, Durga was granted a chance to activate the weapon. But when it came time to fire, the weapon failed. Durga's corner-cutting by saving cost had come back to bite him. Before the Darksaber could escape the advancing New Republic fleet, it was crushed between two massive asteroids, killing everyone aboard. Hammer Station was a prototype battle station built by the Galactic Republic during the Great Galactic War, in a desperate attempt to shift the tide against the Sith Empire. It was constructed within a hollowed-out asteroid and housed a powerful combination of a tractor beam and a gravity cannon. The tractor beam captured nearby asteroids, which the cannon then launched at high speeds toward enemy targets. The kinetic impact was so immense that no shield could withstand it. When positioned over a planet, Hammer Station could level entire cities in a single strike. The Republic, however, was too terrified to use it, even against the Sith, and decided to shut the project down. A decade after the sacking of Coruscant, the Advej Hegemony, a faction in the Outer Rim, rediscovered the station. They reactivated it, seized the stockpile of Republic war droids that were left behind, and began using the station to wage war in the Outer Rim. The Sith Empire and the Republic both then dispatched strike teams to destroy the station, which led to the end of Hammer Station. The Desillator was a Sith superweapon created by the Sith Empire during the Cold War with the Galactic Republic. Designed by Darth Angral as a planet-killing weapon, the Desillator was a hybrid system built by combining three separate Republic superweapon projects: the Planet Prison, the Deathmark Laser, and the Shock Drum. The Desillator's process to destroying a planet thus occurred in three escalating stages. First, it ionized a planet's atmosphere, effectively turning the entire planet into a massive ion cannon. This cut off all communication, grounded ships, and trapped the inhabitants. Second, the Desillator ignited the ionized atmosphere, creating a planet-wide firestorm and penetrating the crust. Finally, it triggered seismic vibrations powerful enough to destabilize the planet's core, tearing the world apart over a matter of hours. The result was catastrophic, as entire planetary chunks scattered into space, with debris forming an asteroid field and the world left in ruins. The lingering ionization also meant the planet remained inaccessible for months. The Desillator's first and only successful test was on the agri-world of Euphrates, which was devastated. After the successful test, Darth Nihilus turned his sights on Tython, the Jedi homeworld, intending to annihilate it. But before the weapon could fire, Republic forces destroyed the Desillator in orbit, ending the threat it posed. Trigon 1 was a weapons satellite security built by the Fromm Gang during the early years of the Galactic Empire. They built it with the intention to gain the upper hand over rival criminal organizations. The satellite was rather small, but was claimed to be capable of destroying an entire planet at full power. However, this claim was never proven. R2-D2 eventually sabotages its guidance systems, and it crashes into a Fromm Gang base. The Tarkin was yet another planet-destroying superweapon built by the Galactic Empire in the aftermath of the Death Star's destruction at the Battle of Yavin. It was named after the late Grand Moff Tarkin, who was killed on the first Death Star. It looked rather unique, having a command bridge that resembled a Star Destroyer's bridge, but was mainly just an elongated body with a huge super laser mounted on it. It was smaller than the original Death Star, but still dwarfed an Imperial Star Destroyer, having a length of 42 kilometers and a height of 75 kilometers. The Tarkin's primary weapon was the enormous ionic super laser mounted on its forward section, similar to the dish design of the Death Star super laser. As the Tarkin neared completion, a first test was conducted on the planet Aten II to harvest its rare Stygian crystals. The operation was a success, with the Tarkin super laser obliterating the planet. However, this would be its first and only confirmed use in battle. Shortly after the destruction of Aten II, a rebel pilot stole the schematics of the Tarkin, alerting the Alliance to a new threat. A team of rebels, including Luke Skywalker, Chewie, and Leia, infiltrated the station in order to destroy it from within. There, they managed to sabotage it to a degree before being forced to flee, as Vader himself was in hot pursuit. The crew of the Tarkin then decided to open fire on their fleeing shuttle with the super laser. As the weapon charged and activated, Leia's sabotage triggered a catastrophic feedback loop. The Tarkin super laser fired directly into itself, causing a massive explosion. The blast destroyed the Tarkin, nearby Star Destroyers, and dozens of smaller vessels. Vader and the gang barely escaped it. And that's it. Every superweapon I wanted to cover. There are, of course, some that were missed, like the Malevolence. However, I don't really deem those as planetary threats. Please subscribe and like the video. And till next time.